Hey everybody, and welcome to Dominion Cards, the video series where we take a strategic, in-depth look at various cards in the board game Dominion. Today we're looking at Mining Village. This is a 4-cost action card from Intrigue, and it says +1 card, +2 actions. You may trash this for 2 coins. So this is what we call a Village variant. That's the card Village from the base game that has +1 card, +2 actions on it. So there's a number of cards like this throughout the expansions that are just Village, with an extra bonus tacked on top. Now, I'm not going to use this video to talk about villages in general and why you might want them, because I've already covered that in the Village video. So if you want to know more about villages generally, please go and watch that video. Instead, I'm going to focus on the differences between this card and Village. So this card costs 1 more, and it gives you this optional extra effect, which is that you may trash this for 2 coins. Now, the cost increase from 3 to 4 is usually not relevant. It's not a bigger jump as, say, 4 to 5, and a lot of the times you would be happy to just pay 4 for the regular Village anyway. It's not to say that it never matters. However, a lot of the time you will, if you're given the choice between Mining Village and Village, like the fact that Mining Village costs more won't necessarily factor into your decision all that much. Now, you can treat Mining Village exactly like Village, never use its bonus, and honestly, it's a perfectly fine card if you do that. So just to make that clear, like sometimes the bonus just isn't relevant at all, and you're not missing anything on the card if you don't use it, so to speak. It's just, it's first and foremost, it is a Village, basically, and you can use it as such. So just some important notes on the functionality of this card. You only get the 2 coins if you trash it, and that trash is an on-play effect, so it's only if you trash it via playing it. Now, you can't trash Mining Village if it's already in the trash, so cards like Throne Room that can play it twice, if you trash it on the first play, you don't get to trash it again for more money on the second play, but you will get the Village effect, the 2 actions and the plus card, you will get that twice. Certain cards, such as Overlord, these are called command cards, they can play cards in the supply or play cards from some area and leave them there. If it's not allowed to move, then you can't trash it because it's not allowed to move to the trash. So you don't get the bonus either in that case. It's just not possible to get it when you're banned from moving the card, essentially. So those are just things that are important to note. So when do we activate this bonus and the self-trashing? Well, there's 2 situations where you usually tend to see this. Number 1, you might see people buy Mining Village really early, such as their opening 4 hand, just so that they can trash it the first time they see it to try and reach a high price point. And the second time is the most common, but usually on the last turn of the game, or rather their last shuffle sometimes. They will just trash it because they won't need to ever play it again, and they just use that to get more money to buy more victory cards. So let's focus on number 1 first, the early game. So why would you open with Mining Village? Normally, opening Village is pretty bad because you don't have the actions to do it. Well, because Mining Village draws a card and then it gives you 2 coins, this is slightly kind of like having a gold. It's ever so slightly worse. But you consider in the early game you're most likely to draw a copper, that's adding 1 coin. So it's essentially a card that is sort of giving you 3 money. And that's pretty nice for trying to hit higher price points. So normally you would buy a silver if you want to hit 5. So if you want to hit 6 or even 7 or possibly even 8 if you opened it like with a silver, then Mining Village, it gives you that opportunity. Now that doesn't mean you are going to hit 7 or 8. But, hitting 6 is a reasonable chance. It's certainly better than hitting silver if you use Mining Village. Of course, you only get to do it once. You will trash the Mining Village by doing it, but sometimes once is all you need, and you just want to get up to that high price point as soon as you can. Now, of course, you do draw first, so you get to decide after drawing and seeing what you draw whether or not trashing it will actually be valuable for you. So if you haven't reached, like say you want to hit 6 and you draw a card and you don't have at least 4 in your hand, then don't trash the Mining Village. You sort of get a booby prize in this case in that you get to keep a village in your deck, and that's fine, but it's not the greatest opening if you whiff. There is a risk involved in doing this, of course, but sometimes you just got to high roll those odds and hope to get something early. So what sort of cards would we actually want early to justify buying Mining Village and blowing it up? Well, here are some examples. There are, of course, more than this, but these are just some important ones. So Artisan is normally really important when it's available, and you do want one to start getting 5 costs as soon as possible. In this case, buying a Mining Village just gives you that odds of getting to 6 on your turns 3 and 4. So that can be a reason, because you might only want 1 initially, and so therefore it's fine. Tournament is a card that wants you to get a province early, so it is justifiable sometimes, and maybe not. Maybe you don't buy the Mining Villages on turn 1 or 2, but you buy it on the next to run through the deck. You can use Mining Village just to try and spike up to hit that 8 once. You don't see it that often, but that is a thing you can do. And then once you have the province, you're on your way with Tournament to get the special prizes. Forge is a card that trashes a lot of cards. If it's the only trashing, you might want it as soon as possible, but the big problem is that massive cost of 7. So using Mining Village, you do have a somewhat reasonable chance of hitting 7 if you open Mining Village in some silver equivalent. You could hit 7 on turn 3 or 4. And you've got some odds. The odds are not super great, but it is possible. And Inheritance is another example of a card, in this case an event, costing 7 that you might want as soon as possible. So if you get Inheritance on turn 3 or 4, all of your estates might now be a useful card, like, say, Mining Village, for example, and that's really powerful to return all of your estates into something really useful early on. So blowing up a Mining Village could be desirable in that case to really try and hit it. But, it is risky, but I have seen people do it before, and it is the right play sometimes. So much, much more likely you are going to see Mining Villages come into play in the late game. So during the player's final shuffle, they will blow up all of their Mining Villages just to get extra money to buy more cards. Now, you should consider how many buys you're going to need in advance of this. Whenever you are thinking about the economy that you have in your deck, don't forget that the Mining Villages are a one-off extra 2 coins as well for your last turn. And it's important to note that as much as you can do that, your opponent can too. So usually you want to keep track of what your opponent is capable of doing on their turn. So how many victory cards they can buy, how much money they have, their buys, and so on. Because that's really going to impact what you can do, because you don't want to give your opponent the opportunity to win the game on their turn. So you've got to sort of play around that, and you've got to remember that their Mining Villages, there is this stored value inside them that they could crack open on that turn. So do pay attention. You can accidentally lose if you forget about this. Like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, they've got way more money than I thought they did, and so you just lose. Now, there is a risk as well in blowing it up during the late game. If you destroy your villages, then of course your deck is going to be a lot worse a lot of the time. Usually you have those villages for a reason, and suddenly getting rid of them all means that your deck won't function anymore, especially if you've got something like Terminal Draw to actually draw anything. The problem with Mining Village is that you do have to destroy them at the moment that you play them, so usually this is going to be in the middle of your turn, and you don't know how your turn's actually going to go. So if you have something where you start destroying all your villages, and then your deck stalls out in the middle of your turn, you could be in trouble, because now you don't have any villages anymore, and you weren't able to take advantage in the way you were expecting to, that extra money that they gave you. So do watch out. Having consistency in your decks is going to be really nice in this case, where possible, just to try and avoid this happening. And sometimes you just got to play the odds anyway, but it is worth noting that this is possible, so you should really watch out for that. Last but not least, there are some cute things you can do with Mining Village if you have a card that can yank it out of the trash. So Grave Robber, Rogue and Lurker tend to be able to do this. So what this means you can do is that you can blow it up for extra money, and then you can just pull it back out of the trash, and you do get to keep it. Now, in this case, like, say, if you're using Grave Robber to do that, you are using Grave Robber essentially as like a terminal silver during that turn, just because playing it essentially got you 2 money, and you kept your Mining Village. So it is sort of like that. And sometimes you just need that bit of money boost. It's not necessarily going to be like the best use of these cards, but it is something that is possible, and you need to consider it. Now, because the Mining Village, when trashed, it goes out of your play area, you can yank it back out of the trash, and then play it again because you regain it to your discard pile. This is a second chance to play it. Now, this only sort of really makes sense with Lurker, because Lurker is non-terminal. If you're spending a terminal action on something like Grave Robber to pull it out of the trash, then you've sort of undone the value in some way of it being a village, because you had to spend the extra village play on just recovering it from the trash. But, of course, you also do get to blow it up twice in that case as well, so you could get a little more money by doing that too. But you can use it as a double village. It is rare that you do this, but you can see it. In that case, you sort of need extra draw to handle. Like, you may have a situation, for example, where your draw is really good. Say it's something like Scrying Pool, or you've got Royal Blacksmith or something. So you're drawing a load of cards. However, you just need a lot of actions for some reason. Maybe you've got Bridge as your only payload, but there's only one village pile and it's Mining Village. In this case, if you're spending actions on drawing on Royal Blacksmith, for example, then you're not going to have that many villages left over to play the bridges. But if you can have some Lurkers in that deck as well, then you might be able to play the Mining Village, recover it, play it again, and that gives you a load more actions, so you can play like more bridges on a turn. That's just an example. That's a very specific example, but just give you that idea. You really don't see this very often because it requires very specific reasons for it to be good, but it is something that you can do. Similarly, Necromancer, after you've trashed it, you can now play it again from the trash. You don't get to take the money twice because you can't trash it when it's already in the trash, but you do get to treat the Necromancer as a village. In that case, you are sort of playing the same Mining Village twice on that turn where you trash it. So that's it for Mining Village. It's just village. It's got this one-off blow-up that you tend to use at the end of the game. This is how you'll mostly see it when you play with it. And it's first and foremost, you get it because it's a village. You tend not to see people pick it up just because they want it to be a store of money once. You tend to see people buy it because it's a village. That's why people are buying this card. Anyway, what we're going to do now is we are going to go over to the online client and we are going to generate some kingdoms with Mining Village, and we're going to see how good it is. On some of these boards, it will just be a village, but that's fine. So what do we have here? I don't see any trashing except for replace. Mining Village is our only village. We've got terminal draw with Smithy. We've got non-terminal draw with Minion, but without trashing, I don't like a Minion that much. We have got buy with Market and a Courtier. So Courtyard Mining Village is fine. Mining Village Smithy is even better. There's a lot of reasonable 4-cost cards we can have a lot of, but how easy is it to buy them? I would like to do a village Smithy engine that plays some markets and just try and buy provinces, and then at some point I might get a replace, and I can turn... In fact, I might get it early on at my first 5, and I can start turning the estates into mills to curse my opponent, and also essentially turn the estates into a cantrip. I don't know how much I'll actually use the mill for a discard effect, but it's nice to curse my opponent and get the estates out of the way. So I think Mining Village is just a village, but because we've got extra buys with Market, we will be exploding them as well on the last turn. So Mining Village is going to be pretty good here. We might be able to gain an extra duchy or 2 or something. So, Mining Village pretty good on that board, I think. So here we have Actual Village and Mining Village, and these are our 2 villages. We've got Sentry to trash down a lot. We've also got Moneylender to get rid of the coppers early on. We also have Remodel, but I think Sentry is going to be doing the trashing estates. I might open Moneylender and Silver, because it looks like we've got a Torturer and Village engine, and we've also got Conspirator we can play for money. We have got Artisan. I would like to play Artisan. It's nice to have extra sentries and extra torturers, and it can start gaining conspirators. One thing I note here is that there is no plus buy. So I think it doesn't matter whether we pick up Mining Village or regular village, because we're never really going to use. If I had the choice and the freedom to choose, I would pick up Mining Village just in case we find a time towards the end where we fail to draw properly for some reason. It might be nice to just get that extra money just to ensure we hit 8. And we are I'm going to say we're buying 1 card per turn, but we do have remodel, and we might be able to turn an artisan into an extra province towards the end. But otherwise, this is a village torturer engine where we want to play torture a lot, and we want to use conspirators for our money. And yeah, that's kind of it, really. I do like having a remodel to play. There's loads of villages, but gaining them is not so great. We have to use artisan plays on it. But otherwise, it's mainly Torturer is the main focus here. Cursing your opponent with Torturer is actually really bad here. Because this is interesting. So because the curses go into your hand, you actually cannot trash them with Sentry early on. They don't go into your discard and give you an easy way to trash them like other attacks. So that's just an unusual case where Sentry is not as good for trashing curses as it otherwise might be. But it'll be fine, right? Eventually on your next turn they'll be in your draw pile and you will be able to trash them. But you still want to torture it a lot. So I think mining village versus village doesn't really matter here, and you're only really using it for village. But I would pick up mining village if the cost didn't matter, because I might be able to use it for its effect, but otherwise I don't particularly care about mining village's effect on that board. So here we have mining village and nobles as villages. We've got Sentry to trash, but we've also got Masquerade. I think I'm opening Masquerade and Silver because it looks like we have an engine with either Courtyard Mining Village or Mining Village and Nobles to draw. We can trash down with Sentry. We have got extra buys with Market. We've got Replace to do some fun stuff. We could potentially... Oh, there's no other good 4s except Mining Village, so I guess we're not going to trash stuff into Nobles. But we could turn some Nobles at the end into Province. I do like just remodelers in general. Like I was saying, we have got Workshop to pick up mining villages and courtyards. I do like that as well. So maybe what we do, we open Masquerade Silver just because we really want sentries, but then we're going to get a Workshop as soon as possible, and we're just going to pick up villages, and we're going to pick up courtyards. I guess we don't worry about nobles. It's expensive. We might get some, but I will eventually want to start buying markets mainly. We will need some money at some point. Workshop can gain us silvers. I don't think I would take Bureaucrat. I think just Workshop can give us silvers. And we could just buy some golds as well. Maybe Replace will be useful to replace some silvers that we gain with Workshop into markets or something. But yeah, Mining Village is fine here. And at the end, last turn, we, of course, again, we get to blow it up, which is nice. So it's good because it's a village and we can take use of its effect. Late. So here, we've got Ironworks to gain us villages and smithies. That's really nice. What is our trashing? There is only mine, so we would rather not buy... Oh, no, sorry, there's Sentry. What am I talking about? Okay, so Sentry's perfectly fine for trashing. We have got Shantytown Village and Mining Village. Though, because we've got Ironworks picking up, you know, the cost is completely irrelevant, and Mining Village is going to be good. We've got Market for extra buys. We've got Courtier to gain us golds. It's only a terminal gold gainer because there's nothing. We're not going to have a Bureaucrat to make this non-terminal or give us buys or coins or whatever. But that's fine. It will gain us some golds. We'll trash down. We'll use Ironworks to pick up these components. We might even get a second Ironworks. And because we've got markets and we can gain a couple of them, and we can even get a buy from Courtier on the last turn or whatever, we can blow up mining villages at the end to get an extra province or something at the end of our turn. So yeah, we're going to pick up Mining Village over the other village options here, unless we have to buy one. But Mining Villages are going to be nice because it gives us that extra boost on our final turn. Otherwise, this is a fairly standard engine. And our last kingdom, we've got Chapel, Masquerade, and Upgrade, all for trashing. Wow. We have Mining Village and Festival, and potentially Diplomat for a village, but you know, we've got Council Room, Masquerade as draw. So we're going to open Chapel, because of course we are. We are going to pick up... Do we just get Ironworks? Even on a 5-2 as well? Possibly. Ironworks is nice to get us mining villages and diplomats. That's really all the draw we need. Eventually we can start to bandit. And at some point we can get some festivals instead of mining villages, so we focus more on festival diplomat just to get the extra buys and money. And we just got a little engine. I think we get a second ironworks just to pick up a load of these components. And we're just going to draw up. It's not going to be the best draw in the world, but we will use it with this standard engine. And we're going to blow up the mining villages at the end, I think. So yeah, this is, again, a fairly standard engine. The draw is not as good. We could possibly have a council room at some point. It seems fine. Drawing our opponent an extra card, not the worst thing ever. Because, I mean, diplomat, you might be able to stop your opponent. If your opponent's going without enough villages and they're going heavier on diplomats to try and get its +2 actions, having a council room is nice to try and stop that. They will get to trigger them on your bandit plays, but so I guess it doesn't matter. I think it would be nice to have a council room or two just because the draw is otherwise pretty weak. But yeah, otherwise I'm going chapel. Yeah, we're not... Mining Village, we will blow them up at the end, but otherwise it's just here for a standard engine, I think. So there you go, that was Mining Village. It's just, as you see, most of the time it's just Village, and we blow it up on the last turns anytime there's some buy available. And that's kind of it, really. That's sort of mostly what it will be in Kingdoms. So it's just a village. The game needs to have a certain density of villages in all of its expansions so that you don't just end up with a load of decks that are always just loads of terminals. So you do see them, and a lot of the time you will see these cards. They're just village with a tiny bonus that's not super important. So yeah, it's okay as a village. There are better villages around, but you know, it's fine. It's actually quite nice to have that extra money stored up for the end, but it's not doing anything until the last turn. So if there's a better village around, usually you might consider buying the other village to start getting extra benefits now, rather than mining village. But it has its uses towards the end. It can be nice to get that payoff. It sort of depends, really, on how useful you think having one turn of extra money is going to be for you. And that's just something that's going to depend on the rest of the board, really. Anyway, that was Mining Village. I hope this video was useful for you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.